Welcome to the Escape and Empower podcast. Escape from the corporate rat race to empowered franchise ownership. Are you ready to take control of your destiny, follow your dreams, and live life on your own terms? Join our hosts, Dave and Pete, for insights on how to break free from the corporate grind, ditch the 9-to-5, and step into empowered franchise ownership.
Welcome to the Escape and Empower podcast. My name is Dave Greenberg, and I am here with my co-host, Pete Gilfillan.
Good morning, Dave.
Bring it on. The energy is just coming through right now, and I love it. Thank you so much for doing that.
I'm pumped up for today because we're always trying to kind of solve a problem or answer a question. So what question should we answer today in our podcast?
Well, I think the one that we get a lot is, who is the ideal executive franchise owner?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? Is that when we think about becoming a franchise owner, that's one thing. But when we say put the word executive in front of it, now we're talking about a different level of franchisee, right? That's somebody that is looking to build something significant.
Some people call it semi-absentee, and I just cringe. Because there's nothing absentee about a business. It doesn't work, at least for me anyway. There are people that label it that way, but let's get real. You can expect what you inspect, but how you approach it and how you think about it is a mindset that for most of our candidates got them to the level of being an executive. And, when you're thinking about who is going to be the ideal executive franchise owner, the first thing you got to think of franchise fit.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it, right? It has to, when you select a franchise, it has to align with your experience, your resources, your goals, right? Because that improves your chances of success. That's a big thing. The deal is there's a lot of different franchise concepts out there, and not every option's for everybody, right? But it's about finding that right franchise that aligns with what you're looking for.
A lot of franchisors don't want executive franchise owners. They want people who are managing the day-to-day operations, who are in it every day. So it starts to segment the franchisors in the industry to say, okay, well, who really wants to take a manage the manager approach? And who wants to level up and hire a general manager, which actually has to go into the pro forma to actually lead the business under your tutelage? And that's why we think about, the second point is you got to bring the professional qualifications. Executive franchise models want a seasoned business leader. And typically people come with 10 to 20 years experience of performing in the corporate leadership world. Because multi-unit operations, you need to act like a CEO. You need to hire, you need to lead, you need to empower, you need to set strategy, you need to manage KPIs, you need to provide the resources because you own the business, and you need to review the financials. All the things a typical CEO does. So you spent many years doing those things. So don't forget, you manage people, you mentored people, you read the P&L, and you are very familiar with the roles, and those skills are transferable. But when you're looking for franchisors that want executive model franchisees, you need to bring the qualifications.
Yeah, I think as the executive models we talk about it, this idea of leading opposed to operating it yourself, right? And you still have to mind your business. So you're going to take that leadership skills, that business acumen to provide good leadership to your manager that is operating the day-to-day operations. And you're going to pay that manager, call it $60,000, $70,000 a year, while you're making $350,000 in the corporate world. But you have to have that strong business acumen, those leadership skills. That's what franchises are looking for in executive model franchisees.
So Pete, how would you talk about the financial requirements for an executive model franchisee?
Yeah, when we talk about the executive model, again, we're not talking about the owner operator. We're not talking about somebody that wants to just operate it. We want somebody that is literally wants to put a manager in place and manage that manager and drive the business. And so for that, you need to have more capital, right? You have to fund the manager, call it $60,000. That goes into your pro forma. You have to plan for future growth. And so the idea is that you need to have a certain amount of liquid capital in overall net worth. So let's just say if you were looking to build something and we're going to build it over time, call it 12 to 18 months, 3 years, whatever your timeline is, you're going to need a couple $100,000 in liquid capital. And you're going to have a net worth of over $1 million because it's going to take capital to build and scale that business. And don't forget that as you're also funding the business in terms of capital, you also have to offset some of your living expenses, especially if you're leaving the corporate world and you're starting the franchise, even though you've got a manager in place, you got to still cover those living expenses. Heck, I had to do that, right? I left the corporate world by high pay and I set up 2 bank accounts, one for the business and I set up one for my personal expenses to help offset paying the mortgage, to buy food for my family and stuff like that. So there is certainly a threshold where you have to have the financial means as you start out becoming a franchisee.
And we call it runway a lot. You have to have it. And these things take time, and you'll learn what the ramp is as you go through the process. And when I think about what you just said about having the capital and building multi-units, you're right. You need to plug in that manager salary. But whether you're building 3 or whether you're building 6, my experience is once you build the 3rd, you're starting to pay for that general manager who's going to run all 6 for you someday.
Yeah.
And you're starting to take home what you need to really cover your corporate salary. And I'd say thinking about point number 4, don't forget about setting goals and being motivated. We always know what gets measured gets done. And I always like to say, expect what you expect. And that is so important. So, you're just not looking at your resume. I mean, you got to set some real goals. You have to have passion for the KPIs. You have to have passion for mentoring people, and people that really love to build teams, also hold them accountable and also have that energy. Pete, you bring the energy all the time, but you need to bring that energy as a leader, as an executive franchise owner. You're not going to check your leadership behaviors at the door. You got to be ready to be excited and motivated and eager to grow and build. It's fun. And that's a shadow that you cast on all the people around you, whether it's the franchisees that you're talking with, whether it's the franchisor that you're starting to get engaged with. And, over 3 to 5 years, you're going to have patience like you mentioned earlier, but you gotta bring the energy, because you got to bring that energy, but you got to make sure you don't get burnt out. And again, like I've said in the past, this isn't that hard, right? When you start thinking of working, 80 hours in the corporate world, putting 40 hours is a lot in the franchising world if you work really smart.
Yeah, you got to be the heart and the passion of your business, right? And there's you have to bring forward that energy, because people are following you, and people aren't going to follow somebody that is flat, that isn't excited every day to satisfy customers, to do the right thing. And so it is about having that passion, that mission, but it's also important to have goals, right? And you got to know where you want to go. That's why we always did business plans, right? And business plans just don't incorporate numbers, they also incorporate people. So you got to have the plan, and you got to then go work that plan with that passion, that motivation, because if you don't have that, if you don't know where you're going and you're not excited about where you're going, heck, you're not getting there, right? And so you got to get out there and figure out where you want to be, and then put a plan in place and go deliver it through great hard work and enthusiasm.
These are all good things. And we've made some points about the ideal executive franchise owner. But, if you don't fit some of those, don't despair. Not everyone fits that mold. And how would you say we can help the people that may not be set up to be an executive franchise owner?
Well, I think the idea is a franchise is a system, it's a process, and it's designed to make business easier. So, you may have a strength in leading people, but maybe a little less business acumen. As long as you bring, your ability to learn, because we learn in the corporate world all the time. If you can, learn and follow a system, if you have a blind spot, you can kind of, for lack of better terms, learn to become better at that, hire people to help you with that, get mentored, whatever it may be. So you don't have to have everything, but you gotta be excited, motivated to drive the business, willing to learn, go out there and just build something for yourself opposed to building a business company, right? You might as well be the one that is benefiting from building something.
If you have it or you think you have it, if you have 10 to 20 years of leadership business experience and you have a nice net worth on your balance sheet of over $1 million and you're comfortable with a 3 to 5 year timeline to build a multi-unit approach to building an empire and you want to stay engaged, sound like you. It could be your path to a financial freedom and the flexibility that you want to build. Pete and I have both built businesses that we work on and not in. Did we work in them to get started? Absolutely. Did we work 80 hours a week? Absolutely not. Did we hire great teams and put them in place and empower them and motivate them and let them run the business like they own it and be rewarded that way? Absolutely. So if this sounds like you, give Pete a call or you want to hire yourself, go to hireyourself.com and time with Pete. It takes 15 minutes with Pete to figure out whether or not it makes sense for you to work together and go to the process. And if you want to work with Dave, go to empoweredfranchisee.com and do the same. Book a call with us. We're here to, have that initial call. Put 15 minutes into your schedule and we can talk through what we should do and whether or not it makes sense to work together.
It's an exciting world, right? And you might as well be in control of your destiny, live life on your own terms and build wealth by being an empowered franchisee. And you have the skills and now you just got to decide, hey, is this something I want to do? I want to become an executive franchise owner.
Well, Pete, thanks for being with us today to talk about this fun topic, and we'll talk about more in the next episodes.
You got it. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in to the Escape and Empower podcast. We hope today's discussion has inspired you to consider franchise ownership as a path to living life on your own terms. Start your journey towards financial freedom and flexibility. Connect with Dave at empoweredfranchisee.com or Pete at hireyourself.com. Until next time.